like I said, our digital life is becoming so much more of our everyday life. Just wait till virtual reality becomes mainstream, because then we're all we're all screwed. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Upgrade My Rituals podcast. My name is Kevin McKellar, your host, and this is the show for solopreneurs and business owners that are looking for a little more productivity, efficiency, and they're really trying to execute their ideal day, that day that just kind of says, yeah, I killed it, right? And for this Quick Tip Tuesday, what we're going to really quickly talk about is something that I've been actually going through right now, and that is your digital life. So how do we organize our digital life, and how to actually incorporate your digital world in your routines? So, for instance, I'm sure that we've all, in some point in our lives, have awoken, and then immediately, like, the very first thing we do is grab your phone and then check your email or like something, right? Like a social feed or something. And we've all been there. We've all done it. I mean, I feel like just maybe recently I've caught myself doing something like that, which is usually very, very rare, because I very rarely ever have my phone anywhere near my bedroom, let alone my bed. But either way, it is not your fault. Number one, if you find yourself either first thing in the morning or last thing at night, when you're trying to do something that will have some type of benefit, you find yourself doing the exact opposite, being addicted to this digital world. Now, I'm not going to talk about too much of the addiction today. That's really for another episode, but I want to just give you a couple of tips that will help you kind of organize your digital life. So besides, like I said, the routine of not checking your phone first thing in the morning, we do find ourselves most often when we first get to work kind of diving right in. And I think that is the unexplored area. Again, the before work routine is really, really important. And as you probably know, if you've been listening to the show for a little bit, that the before work routine can happen really at work, or before you even leave the house, or for that matter, if you're starting your day and whatever, if you stay home or whatever it is, or maybe somewhere in between, overlapping. But I think it's really kind of important, because when you have a concept of what your digital life is going to be like for the day, not only can we kind of craft our routines a little bit better, but we can make sure that we're, optimizing. So, for instance, I'll give you a little bit of an insight of what I'm doing. I am kind of revamping my whole digital world. I just bought the M1 Macbook Pro, which is really, really nice. But unfortunately, to do that, but unfortunately, with doing that, I also had to buy a docking system, because those ports, there's only like one USB-C port on the MacBook. And then, of course, with that allows me to be able to plug in my external hard drives. So then all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, I have to organize my external hard drives, because I was using some older ones. I need a faster one, a Thunderbolt 3, whatever, all this geeky stuff, right? But I'm looking through this and I'm realizing, you know what? Not only do I have really no organization to my digital files, my digital life, but I have no organization to the digital inputs. So there are 1,000,001 different resources that you can look up when it comes to, task management systems, when it comes to email productivity, when it comes to all these different things. But what I want to do is I want to walk you through, I just want to make you aware of these things. Like, this episode today is not going to give you 3 ways to do it. I'm just literally talking to you, and this quick tip is literally making you aware of your digital life, because sometimes we don't even realize it. So the first thing we have to look at is the organization to our digital life, right? the organization of our files, the organization of all of our media, the organization of our documents. And those three things actually really are different, right? Pictures, music, whatever it may be, but they really are different, and they have to be placed in the right places that make sense to you. That could be on a shared drive, iCloud drive, Dropbox, Google Drive, whatever it may be, on a hard drive, whatever it is. But you just have to decide where they're going. And to be honest with you, it's now that we're really, we're all really working from home probably for a long time, and many companies are probably going to shift to, more than probably half their staff permanently home because they realize they can do it. Again, another topic, but this is really important. So if you don't find yourself a digital savvy person, you do have to eventually come to bear with this, that this is a way of life now. Because again, my brand new MacBook came with 256 gigabytes of hard drive space. That's a joke, right? So we have to have these different systems and these different little gadgets that kind of go along with our digital life. So number one is, where are we going to be storing all our files? Number two, how do we organize inputs, incoming things, right? Where are they? How are they being processed? And then, of course, then where are they going? Because you've already organized all your files, but how are they being processed? So a lot of times what the people will do is they'll have their inbox, right? Because that's usually a 90, probably 95% of incoming inputs, right, are coming in through email. What we'll do is we'll have all of the unread emails as our to-do list, and then all of the read emails as like we check it off, right? Really, really bad system. And I'm not blaming you. I'm telling you that I've done it before in my life as well. What you need to do is create different folders in your inbox, in your email service provider. You have to have basically an inbox for like a capture inbox, right? Your main inbox, which everything is coming in, if you haven't looked at it, right, it just stays in the inbox, right? Then you have to have another basically folder within that inbox for like basically things you're going to put off, like that, not deliberately putting off, but that you can't get done right away because either it involves somebody else's input or it involves a project that you're not finished with, whatever it may be. There has to have that kind of that delegated folder, right, to the reserve. The biggest thing with email is that once you see it, you have to kind of process it, right? It either has to be, the task has to be completed so you then can delete the email, or that email, if you can't delete that or finish that task, it has to be moved over into that processing folder, whatever you want to call that, right? And then really what the goal is to get to inbox 0. And that's a tricky thing, but I've been there, and it's a beautiful place. It's a wonderful land of all dreams coming true. Anyway, so that's the biggest thing we have to do is how, what we're doing with all the things that are coming into our world. And then really finally, I think you have to look at your hardscapes, right? Your tangible items. How are they interacting with each other? What process are you going to use? So basically, for instance, if I take a picture with my iPhone and I have to do something with that picture, is it easier for me to do it on the device itself, or is it easier for me to just airdrop it over to my MacBook and then be able to kind of do it on my computer, whatever that may be, editing or emailing or whatever it is, right? Those things have to be thought through, and you have to have a system for that. Now, I think the biggest thing that the reason I'm making this specific episode is, as you can tell with obviously the new office, I'm kind of starting from scratch, from everything, and a lot of it has to do with media production, this exact show. So if you're listening to this, this is also being videoed and being put on YouTube and all the different social channels. So now I've got the video from the SD card. I've got the audio that's going into my computer. I've got to match those up into Final Cut Pro, and then I've got to chop all that stuff up to, smaller things. It's a very involved process. So some of you may never have that much of an involved process, but like I said, even if it's simple Word documents and, a couple of videos that you have saved. I mean, like I said, our digital life is becoming so much more of our everyday life. Just wait till virtual reality becomes mainstream, because then we're all we're all screwed. But before that happens, I think it's a really good idea to get a hold of your digital life, get organized and get a process in place. And then ultimately, once you have all that done, then you can look at your routines. And then you can say, how does my digital world fit into my routine? When do I check email? That's a really important one. If everything is organized and you're at inbox 0 and you know where things have to go and you know when things will be processed, then it's really simple to check email twice a day. I know some of you just cringed when you heard that, but it's really true, right? Unless you're in client services, right? I understand that. If a client emails you and, your company's policy is really, you gotta get to that, in the next couple of hours at least, that's a different story, right? But maybe even 3 times a day. I don't think there's any harm in checking email. Maybe one of the first things you do throughout the day. I wouldn't recommend it to be the very, very first thing. Maybe at lunchtime or right before lunchtime or after. And at the end of the day, you can definitely get away with that, but you have to block it out. So you have to have a designated half-hour time to be processing email. So if you overnight from 5 o'clock and then you go to work 9 o'clock in the morning and you get 30 emails, right? What happens is, if we don't have a routine in place and have a half an hour block for processing emails, then what happens is that the third email down, you start writing a response, and you're at a really in-depth response because it's your manager wants something to do that, and then you want to attach something, but then you don't want to know where that file is. So then it takes another 5 minutes trying to find that file. Oh wait, you know what? I forgot to proofread it. I got to edit it, right? And then all of a sudden 20 minutes goes in, by your 30-minute block, and you've processed 3 emails out of 30. That's the problem, right? The problem is you didn't actually process this. You got held up on actually, handling one of those emails that may be important, may be urgent, but most likely not, right? That could be weighted into another time later on in the day that you can organize that, or whatever you may want to do. But that's why routines are so important, because it really, it sets you up for a less stressful and a more productive day, because there's going to be a time throughout the day to get every different thing done. But a lot of it is figuring out what those things even are. I've asked some people, I've asked a couple of people in my family, and I said, do you guys, how do you guys organize your day? Do you write? And you'd be surprised, a few of them, they're like, yeah, what do you mean? I just go to work and it's like, and maybe sometimes you have a job that doesn't need that much detail-oriented processing, but still, I promise you, the more minutia you can uncover, the more relaxed and stress-free your day will be. I promise you that. So, to recap, this was a little bit longer of a quick tip Tuesday, but I kind of thought this was fairly important. Organization, where your files are coming, right? And where they're being stored, right? Processing, how they're coming in and how we're dealing with them, right? Those are 2 big parts of your digital life. And then of course the hard, hardware. What are you using these devices for? How are you using them in your systems? And just figuring that out, because I guarantee probably most of us haven't even really thought that through. There we go. So guys, thank you so much for listening and watching today. If you like this episode, please let me know, leave a review on iTunes. And if you really liked it, definitely share it with a friend if they think they, might need some help with their digital life. And of course, I will see you on the next episode of the Upgrade My Rituals podcast.